Starting. All right, welcome into the Aggie Up podcast. We're just going to jump in, get started here. We've got 45 minutes, and hopefully, we'll be able to preview the matchup this Friday between BYU and Utah State. We've got Seth Tuba on the line. Seth, say what's up.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
So we're going to be joined by Jake Hatch as well. He covers BYU and kind of works his radio gig and helps with the scout side as well as a publisher. So we'll get his thoughts on BYU. Seth, give us your 2-minute recap or your thoughts on the San Jose State game.
I'm not going to really give a recap. Everybody knows it was a woodshed, 61-10. But I guess I'll just say, 4 weeks in, we still don't really know who Utah State is. I mean, sad to say, but they've either gotten beat 60-something to 10 or they've won 60-something to 10, I mean, that's kind of how it's gone. So I don't know what they can really take away from the game. It is a road win, and it's a big road win. I don't care who you're playing. Win by 50 points on the road, that's showing something. And they put together a whole game, really. Even with the backups, they came in, they played well. Special teams was really, really, really good, I thought. Block punt, 52-yard field goal. Those short, I don't know what San Jose was thinking or doing, but they just couldn't seem to catch a ball. I don't know. But yeah, San Jose, they're not a good team. I mean, they're not. And I mean, Utah State averaged over 5 yards a carry and held them under 3 yards a carry. And, I don't know. I'm not going to go on and on about it. It's over with. I think everybody wants to hear about Friday night's game, really. But, no, it was an encouraging win. I'm not going to take that away. But
yeah,
I was hoping 4 weeks in we'd know a little bit more, about Utah State. But,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, last week we talked to Jackson Moore about the San Jose State team, and he didn't sound like he was expecting a lot, but at the same time we kind of said, you know what, if Utah State comes out and completely lays an egg and doesn't show up to play, then San Jose can keep it close, and San Jose might even be able to win the game. So what it really showed to me is Utah State went down there and they came to play and they showed up. They all three phases of the game showed up and played well, and obviously the results speak for themselves, like you say. So yeah, we'll move on from that. That's about all we have to say about that. And then so Jake Hatch joins us right now. How's it going, Jake?
Doing well. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. So I guess the first question has to be, this BYU team. I think there's part of the BYU fan base maybe, or media or whoever, that kind of is sticking with the rhetoric of this team has played some really tough games, some really tough teams, and they haven't looked good against those teams, but it's they have a couple losses to start the season, and now they move on to a little bit easier competition, a little bit easier games and so forth. What's your opinion on where this team is at, or what do you think?
Well, as you guys were just saying, Utah State, you guys don't necessarily have a ton of answers about what Utah State looks like. Well, to be frankly honest, I'm not sure we have a ton of answers on what BYU is in terms of their offense in particular, because it's been frankly pathetic what BYU's been putting out there on the field on offense. And Kalani Sitake, when we've talked to him at media, his press conferences, even after games the last few weeks, he has been extremely frustrated by the lack of offense. I think BYU's defense has shown that they're pretty capable. I know that the Wisconsin loss was a little bit of an anomaly in terms of what they had done earlier in the season, but right now they have played some stiff competition, but what they're putting out on the field in terms of the offense, I don't care who they're playing. They could be playing Savannah State and they'd probably still struggle. They've got to figure something out on offense.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, I would definitely agree, and I think most people would agree as well that it's been pretty disappointing. So how I guess how big or how important is this game, do you think, going into it? Because it seems like BYU is kind of where Utah State was, trying to prove something, trying to get a win on the road and everything. So how important is this game, do you think?
I actually think it's critical. In all honesty, BYU sitting at 1-3 right now, facing Utah State Friday night, and then they follow that up the next 2 weeks. Another Friday night tilt against Boise State here in Provo next Friday, and they follow that up with a trip to Mississippi State. So let's put it this way: they lose this game against Utah State, they're staring a potential 1-6 in the face. And you think BYU fans are upset with a 1-3 record right now? Just imagine what they would be if they were 1-6, having to face a 6-game stretch where they got to win all 6 games in a row to qualify for a bowl. So I do think it's a critical game on Friday night.
Yeah, and I'm kind of a believer in I kind of give the advantage to the team that wants it more, right? And
Yeah.
maybe the team that wants it more isn't necessarily BYU. Um, but you kind of have the if you want to characterize the two teams as one really hungry to get a win, and the other one maybe in Utah State maybe is a team that has some confidence, right? So it's interesting to me to look at those two sides.
Yeah, they should absolutely. The Aggies should take confidence into this game, and I get that San Jose State is probably a lower tier Mountain West team this year, but the fact that Utah State did what they did on the road at San Jose State was quite impressive, especially on offense. I thought it was a pretty complete game all in all. I thought the special teams looked good. I thought the defense looked good, so they should be carrying confidence into this game. BYU, yes, they've got to be hungry because So I work for the Zone Sports Network in Salt Lake City, and we're now the broadcast home for the Aggies. So we have Matt Wells on my radio show every Monday. Matt came on with DJ and PK and said, well, we consider BYU to be a rival. I don't know if they consider us to be a rival. And if there are any BYU players, coaches, administrators that don't see Utah State as a rival, they should start considering them a rival because this is very much a toss-up game, in my opinion, right now.
Yeah, so I guess the kind of the next step to that is, can a hungry BYU team come out and be successful on offense? Is Bo Hodge, Ulu Tulatau, the offensive line, the receivers, whoever you want to throw in there, what are they capable of? In your opinion?
I think that they're capable of being better, I would hope, after a bye week where they got some extra work in. I have not been impressed with the offensive line. There was a lot of talk all summer long during the offseason that BYU's offensive line was going to be the strength of this team. It had 4 returning starters plus the 5th starter was a part-time starter last year. And to be honest, I don't think the offensive line has lived up to the hype that they were given in the offseason. So it'll be interesting to see if they've been able to step up. Bo Hodge, I'm filling in for Tanner Mangum. It's looking like Hodge is going to get his second start under center for BYU. He's more in the mold of a Taysom Hill, so where he's going to run more read option. He's going to pull the ball and run it a little bit. And we talked to him during media availability earlier this afternoon, and he said, yeah, I'm more in the mold of a Taysom Hill where I run the ball a little bit more, and that's what we're going to do a little more on offense. I think that could help get BYU on track a little bit. Hopefully it can open up some holes for the running backs because they frankly haven't had many holes to run through early on this season. It's been a bad deal all around. So honestly, I don't know exactly what to expect, but I would hope with an extra week off to game plan. They said they had a players-only meeting for BYU last week. And Fred Warner told the media yesterday during his press availability, you're going to see a different team this week. What that different team that he's talking about looks like on offense, I don't have a clue of what it's going to look like exactly, but I would hope it yields better than the 128th ranked offense in FBS.
Okay. So Kalani keeps saying, you mentioned the kind of the press conference and everything. I listened to Kalani's comments, and I think he said it basically after every game is, we need to do what we do well. We know what we do well. We just need to do that. We need to execute. So starting with offense, what do they do well? What do they have as weapons or as something that they can use and stand behind.
I think in terms of weapons on offense, I believe that so Matt Bushman, the tight end, a lot of people have talked about him. The Utah State's got two guys that I think are in the same class as Bushman, honestly, and Carson Terrell and Dax Raymond. So he's a weapon for BYU to use that they have been trying to get more ingrained in the offense. And when they seem to get him the ball, good things happen. He's going to come down with it, and he makes things happen. Another guy that saw his first, I guess, extensive action of the season, in my opinion, against Wisconsin was Micah Simon. He's a sophomore receiver out of the Dallas area, and he had a 50-yard catch against Wisconsin. And I think he's shown some things that he could be a little more of a weapon. So hopefully they can get him ingrained. I do think that Ula Tolutau is probably BYU's best running back. I just worry that he's coming off an LDS mission, if he's necessarily able to be the bell cow back, be the kind of the lead guy. But I do believe he's a weapon in terms of being able to attack a defense if you give him the hole, because he's very much the type. He's a 250-pound bowling ball, and you tell him where the hole is, he's going to hit that hole. He doesn't care if there's one or two guys in that hole that are trying to tackle him. He's going to try to bowl them over and gain a couple of yards. So, I think that the weapons for BYU are Bushman. This Micah Simon kid, I think, has shown some things. Talon Shumway's a player that a lot of people have brought up that I think has some skills, but hasn't been able to necessarily show them all to this point. He's kind of been bottled up. And I think Ula Tolutau is one guy as well. Bo Hodge, like I mentioned, just barely. The fact that he can run the ball a little bit in the read option game, I do think he's a weapon that BYU can utilize in this game. So it'd be incumbent on Utah State to slow down that read option attack.
Okay. So what have you seen anything in particular not work or work against Matt Bushman? Have teams been putting a linebacker on him, a safety on him? What's been
What I've noticed when he gets balled up, they kind of high-low him, and they're not hitting him high and they're not hitting him low. It's where they put a linebacker in front of him, they put a safety behind him. So if you're going to get a pass to him in that window, it has to be on point and on time. And teams like LSU, I think Utah did a good job of it. Wisconsin was able to cover him. It seemed like more with just linebackers. They've got a lot of athletes on Wisconsin, as you guys know. You guys saw it firsthand with Utah State against them. But when he's been bottled up, it seems like, yes, they have a linebacker that kind of lines up over him at the snap of the ball, and they kind of sit underneath him with a safety protecting over the top. And if you're going to get the ball to him, you've got to have it on time. And frankly, it hasn't been on time a lot this year so far.
Yeah. So that's kind of the offense, I guess. But the defense, the defense deserves some blame as well, right? I mean, the defense by no means has played perfectly.
No.
What is what's kind of the strength and weakness of the D?
The strength is in their linebacking core. I know that the highly publicized Francis Bernard situation took one of their best linebackers off the field, but they still have Fred Warner out there. They still got Butch Pau, and both of those guys are frankly fantastic players. And those two are definitely the strength. They moved Matt Hadley to that linebacker position that Francis Bernard vacated, and I think he's filled in pretty admirably. He's just not the pure athlete that Francis Bernard is. But I think that Pau and Warner's abilities have kind of made up for some of the stuff that he may lack in terms of overall athleticism. In terms of the weaknesses, BYU secondary, there's some talent in the secondary, in my opinion. I just don't think that they've lived up to it. You saw Wisconsin, Alex Hornibrook set a school record, 94.7% completion percentage, missed on one pass all afternoon long. And it was, and honestly, the route that they ran all game long, it was a 10-yard and in. It's if you go back and watch the film from BYU, Wisconsin's receivers, it was a 10-yard and in, and every once in a while they'd also run a skinny post. And Alex Hornibrook hit those all day on BYU's secondary. So the secondary needs to shore some things up, but that also can be helped by a pass rush, which Sione Takitaki came into the season getting a lot of hype that he was going to really break out. He had 2 sacks against Portland State to start the year, and everybody said, hey, he might actually live up to the hype. but he's been relatively quiet since then. And the rest of the pass rush for BYU, Corbin Kaufusi, Trajan Peely, some of the guys at defensive end, frankly, haven't been able to get much of a push themselves. So I think it's a combo with the pass rush and pass defense in the secondary have been weaknesses, but I do think the linebacking core has been pretty strong so far.
Yeah, and I mean that Wisconsin team is going to be a good team. I know Seth doesn't want to hear this, but because he's an Iowa fan, but but they're really good at mixing their play calls, right? So
Yes.
if they were only a running team, if they were only, a triple option type of run the ball and every time but 7 or 8, the whole game, they would be pretty, they might be kind of easy to, not easy to stop, but you would have an easier time stopping them than their play action and their passing game is really, and the tight end is so effective because they can run the ball and they can mix it up, and so that's going to be a good team. They're going to have a good season, and I think looking at Utah State, if Utah State went into the game the same team, played the same schedule as BYU, they'd probably be in the same spot. So that's what's hard. I don't know why that this kind of makes me think of this, but what I think everybody likes Kalani Sitake and everything, but it kind of makes me think, what if BYU went to like an option offense? What if
Are you talking more spread option, or what are we talking?
I mean, I just look at it. It always comes down to, BYU doesn't have the receivers. BYU's receivers can't get open, that kind of thing. What if they were running Navy's offense? What if they were an option team? What if they were
Well,
running the triple option? Do you think?
they almost had that with Kenya Matalolo, if you remember the
Right,
whole
exactly. That's why I ask, is because
yeah.
do you think part of it's the offense? Do you think part of it's, I
Well,
don't know. Do you think BYU can get the receivers? I guess that's what I'm asking as well,
yeah, no,
and run this offense.
it's a matter of recruiting to what you're trying to play, and I think that the question still remains: can BYU recruit to the system they're trying to implement on offense? It hasn't been answered yet. I was actually thinking about this about a week ago. So Lavelle Edwards, people all know the name Lavelle Edwards. What did he do at BYU when he came in? He decided, guess what? He anticipated getting fired. If you've heard the stories from him, but he said, we're going to go try something new on offense. We're going to try something innovative. We're going to throw the ball all over the field. Well, 257 wins later, a national championship, a Davey O'Brien Award winner, seemingly every quarterback he ever had, a Heisman Trophy winner in Ty Detmer. Later, he completely revolutionized college football as we know it. Okay, so what does BYU have to do to be on the cutting edge of having an offense that is ahead of the game? I think that Kalani Sitake believes that the pro-style offense, where you mix in a little bit of the shotgun, some read option as well, is something that is innovative enough for him to have success. Will that ultimately yield the success? It's yet to be determined. But a team like Navy, like a Georgia Tech, any of the service academies, the Army and Air Force, that triple option that they run, it's innovative enough that they're able that they're able to have success with it. I think that if Kenya Matalolo would have come to BYU fans might have revolted because they couldn't bear the thought of their team being an option team. But in many ways, it might have been a decent move for them to have an innovative offense like that. I think Kalani Sitake came in and said, okay, I see the spread is taking over college football. BYU does need to be a little bit different. We need to have something that's our edge, or it's a innovative system. And they brought in what Ty Detmer's running in more of a pro set, and we'll see if it yields results. But I think Kalani Sitake realizes that he needs something to be different in terms of have an offense. Now, can he go get the athletes to do that? In year 2, the answer remains unanswered.
Yeah. Seth, I'm horrible at including you and letting you ask questions and make comments. I am sorry. The floor is yours.
I just like, sitting here and Yeah. No, you're good, man. No, like, I mean, you were talking about, like, I mean, Ty Detmer, I mean, yeah, he was an awesome college quarterback and everything, but Jake and I mean, right now, I mean, I know the sample size is still pretty small. I mean, doesn't have, he's what, year and a half in.
Yeah.
But do you think, I mean, I don't know, when they hired him, I was kind of scratching my head a little bit, I mean, high school OC coming in. I mean, yeah, I know alma mater and everything, but do you think he might be in over his head right now?
In some ways, I think he could be, because, like you said, his only job coaching was at a high school level, and I know everybody's like, well, it was in Texas. Okay, he was at a lower level Texas private program, and this is not a knock, but this is the simple fact of the matter is his last job was a high school program that he did decently well at. He was working with high school athletes. I think he's very much taken the system his dad, Sonny Detmer, implemented down there in the San Antonio area, and Sonny still runs this offense, and Ty's kind of adapted it with what he learned about a lot in the NFL, and he's kind of melding the two into this pro set. I think the misnomer that BYU fans may have in particular is that they think that Ty Detmer is coming in to run the offense he ran as a quarterback at BYU. This is not the offense that Ty Detmer ran at BYU. Ty Detmer wants to run the ball. He wants to control the line of scrimmage and then play action and throw the ball down the field. Ty Detmer's offense at BYU was throw the ball 60, 70 times a game and hand it off on a draw trap every so often to keep the defense a little bit honest. So a year and a half in, I do think in some ways he's learning on the job, plain and simple. He's trying to figure things out, and there are mistakes that you're seeing in these games that are critical errors that maybe a more seasoned offensive coordinator at the college level may have avoided. But BYU doesn't have that luxury of having that seasoned coordinator in Ty's spot right now. Ty's got to learn on the job, and BYU will have to put up with these mistakes he's making and allow him to learn from them, hopefully, as he moves forward.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with those comments. I'm not saying he won't be a really good coordinator someday, but, just right now, it's just, you said it all. Then my only other comment really is you talked a little bit about the offensive line not living up to the hype. My sample size is pretty small. BYU, I don't watch a lot of BYU football, but, I mean, I watched the Wisconsin game just because that was kind of a parity game, just to see how things went, because we know how it went for Utah State. So I was just kind of curious on that one. And I think I watched just a little bit of another game. But yeah, it just seems like the offensive line, in the past for BYU has been just nasty guys and just really physical. And, the little bit that I've watched this year, you just don't see that, and I don't know if those guys just don't have that mean streak, or, I mean, you're around them a lot more.
Yeah.
But we've talked about it a lot about the Utah State offensive line. Like last year they had all these starters back and everything, and quite frankly, it was kind of disappointing the way they played. Now they got 5 guys that are brand new, and I mean, some of them JC guys that played defense and they switched them to offense, and I was scratching my head about that last year and wondering how it was going to work. And so far they've, surprised me. So they're starting to mesh pretty well together at Utah State, and they kind of have that mean streak, a lot of them they're just kind of nasty. What's your opinion on the temperament of the offensive line?
Honestly, I do think BYU's offensive line at times is a little too passive, honestly. And Tijon Karoma, their center, I like watching the kid play. I think he's an undersized guy. They list him at 6'2", 290. He's literally the strongest guy on the team. If you look at his arms, they're as big as his thighs. He's a strong dude. Individually, he's one of the most talented players on the team. Okay, here's the problem though. As an offensive lineman, you have 4 other guys along that line that are playing with you that you have to work in sync with. And I don't think BYU's necessarily been in sync on their offensive line so far. They brought back all these guys that had starting experience from last year, and I don't know necessarily that they have completely gelled yet this season, which is a big time problem entering the 5th game of the year. I do think that they are a little passive at times. Guys like Thomas Schoaf, he's a great technician in terms of being a left tackle. He's a little light. They list him at 280. He may weigh 265. He just looks skinny to me. He's a great technician at left tackle, but I feel like at times he gets overpowered. I feel like a guy like Austin Hoyt he's coming along, but his development's still ongoing. Mike Empey is doing the best he can, honestly, in my opinion. I think Mike Empey is a great offensive line coach, and I think that he got to this job thinking, okay, I've got some guys that can compete, and he's kind of putting them in spots to hopefully succeed. But I still think that BYU, the last couple of years under the Bronco Mendenhall tenure, I really think that the offensive line play fell off. The recruiting especially fell off. And Kalani Sitake, Mike Empey, Ty Detmer, all the offensive staff for BYU, they're trying to play catch-up. But the problem is with recruiting to BYU is you have guys that are going to go on LDS missions. You have all these different things that play into it. So to say that they're going to turn this offensive line issue around immediately, it's not feasible in my mind. I agree with you on Utah's offensive line. When I heard that they were starting 5 new guys that hadn't been on the team last year, 2 of which are former BYU guys, Roman Andrus and Quinn Ficklin, I was surprised that they did it. But I'm with you. I think that the Utah State offensive line, they've played a little bit of an edge this year. I've watched I'd say 95% of Utah State's games so far this year, and I've liked what I've seen from their offensive line. So I do think that new blood can really help an offensive line. BYU kind of went with the status quo, felt like they had the guys in place to succeed, and they still have a chance. Like I said, it's the 5th game of the season. It's a 13-game season for BYU this year, so there's still a ways to go. But I feel like they need to get going quickly, or they could really find themselves in a world of hurt.
So I'll stick with that. Sorry, I was going to say I'll stick with that theme real quick. Utah State has a couple former BYU guys. Do you think BYU is getting as fired up about this game as Utah State, or what do you think? Is there any dynamic like that that's other than kind of just improving and getting a win and everything? Do you think there's any? I don't know. It almost seems like BYU should be the more hungry team, right?
You would hope so. So Johnny Linehan, he's BYU's punter. They brought him out to media availability yesterday, and the question was asked of him, "Hey, how important?" There's asked of some of the other guys this question: how important is it to see success for the team, in terms of getting wins, seeing results on the field after the work you guys are putting in? And Johnny Linehan said, "It's very important. We need a win." Like, that's what he said. We need a win, because when guys go out and grind, and then they go out on the field and lose a game, and BYU on a 3-game losing streak, it gets the guys. Johnny said that it affects guys, and I think it affects everybody. When you're playing in a sport and you lose, it's tough to rebound from that. So I think that BYU definitely should be the hungrier team, and they should be the aggressor, I guess is how you would want them to approach this game. And if the mentality of BYU is that of what Johnny Linehan describes, where they feel like they do need a win, I think they're going to be the hungry team. But he's one guy saying that, and there's 85 to 105 guys on that roster. Do they all share that same sentiment? That's yet to be determined. We'll see what happens on Friday night.
Yeah, and the reason why I ask you that, and we're talking about that so much, is because it's weird. It's opposite of what usually would be the case, and seems like, even last year when it was at the end of the year, right? They, Utah State, well, I guess they did, neither team had a lot to play for, but if neither of them have a lot to play for, you would think the Aggies would really want to beat BYU. They'd want to go to BYU and beat them, and kind of on a regular year. You would think that would be kind of the case where Utah State's trying to upset BYU, and really a couple years ago, I guess it was 2014 when Utah State won at BYU. I mean, the coaches were fired up, basically basically telling, yeah, I mean, they it felt like they were saying, you doubted us and the media doubted us, and after the game it
Yeah.
was like easy there, geesh. But yeah, I mean, obviously they were fired up about that game, and they were going in playing the top 10, top 15, top 20 team, whatever they were, and they were big time, motivated to go in there and get the win. So it's just kind of opposite of what we're used to. So I think that's kind of got Aggie fans scared and worried about this game. Seth, what are your comments? Your thoughts? You're kind of our resident, Aggie fan, pulse of the regular Joe Aggie fan. What are you worried about this game? Are you kind of excited to see it? What are your thoughts on that whole thing?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm always excited when they play somebody in state, whether it be Utah or BYU. I just think it adds more to the game and the atmosphere and everything like that. I know a lot of tweets were going around, and I know Hans thought it was Utah State's Super Bowl or whatnot. And I know
I was going to bring that up.
they asked Coach Wells. They didn't come out and say, "Is it your Super Bowl?" But they said how important it is. Is it? And Coach Wells is like, "Well, it's we consider it a rival," like Jake said. And I don't see it as a just being a fan or whatever as the Super Bowl. I mean, there's a conference and a conference championship to play for for Utah State. So those are the important games. Like going to getting a road win, 1-0 in conference play, and then going into this game. I mean, obviously, yeah, they're going to be jacked up and they're going to want to win the game. But I don't know. I don't have. It's really weird, and you guys have kind of commented on it. BYU doesn't really know what they are, and Utah State, I don't know. I think they're getting there. Utah State is.
Mm-hmm.
And going into that Wake Forest game, everybody was shocked by that outcome. And to be honest with you, I didn't think I thought they'd get beat because I think Wake Forest is a pretty dang good team. They brought a lot of people back from last year that went down to Tallahassee and almost beat Florida State, and they played Clemson really tough last year. I mean, so they had these people. I didn't think they were going to get, absolutely shellacked and embarrassed like they did.
Right.
But I kind of figured the outcome would have been a loss, But it's just Utah State's got a lot of young guys, a lot of new faces, and they got to learn on the fly too. Kind of like Jake was saying with Detmer, and hopefully the growing happens sooner rather than later. You know what I mean? BYU's had a week to think about things, and they're going to be jacked up and ready to play and wanting to play. And Utah State's coming off of a big, huge road win and with a lot of confidence. So it's going to be interesting to watch the game. I mean, I don't know what to expect. Is Utah State going to come out and lay an egg? Or are they going to play like they did last week? And is BYU with, Hodge, coming with a second start? Is he going to be able to throw the ball like he needs to? Is he going to be able to? Because that's kind of Utah State's strength is their secondary. Are they going to? Is his receivers going to get open? I know there's a player that was a Utah State guy, and then whatever happened, Trineman.
Right.
But he's got legit speed, and you don't really hear much from him. I know speed's not everything, but you think they would try to find a way to get him in some space, and try to get him the ball because I think he's a pretty dynamic player. But
there's a couple. Go ahead.
I'm excited. I'm always excited for in-state games. So.
Yeah. There's a couple things that I've been dying to talk about. First of all, the Super Bowl in the NFL is every team's goal at the beginning of the season, right? They say, you know what, we want to make it to the Super Bowl. We want to play in the Super Bowl. So it's the biggest game. Obviously, it means the most. It's their goal. Well, beating BYU is not Utah State's number one goal. Maybe it was back in, I don't know, 1998 or something, you know. I mean, maybe some of the worst teams that Utah State's had. And maybe Hans is right. It was the Super Bowl of those Utah State teams and Utah State fans back then. I remember it was kind of like the Super Bowl, but times have changed. And you know what? And one of the things that I do want to see and will be interested to kind of watch is some of these guys that either used to play for BYU or didn't get recruited by BYU. I mean, you've got Carson Terrell, you've got Baron Gajkowski, you've got Dax, you've got Carson Terrell, you've got Quinn and Roman and all these guys that either played for BYU, didn't get offered a scholarship, walked on at BYU and left. I mean, there's so many different things, and it'll be interesting to see how motivated they are. Um, obviously down Levitt, we saw he kind of went a little overboard last year, in my opinion, as far as
That
how
made me
hyped up he
chuckle though.
was. Yeah. So, we know Dallin Levitt's gonna get. He's gonna be amped up for the game. I think Quinn Ficklin's gonna be amped up for the game. Those guys are gonna get up for this game. So that's what I'm excited to see. And I think one of the other keys is is basically turnovers. And if Kent Myers can make some good decisions instead of like that first interception he threw against San Jose was just a bad decision, bad pass, bad all around, and those most of those passes against Wisconsin were bad passes, bad decisions. So if he can, I honestly think if the Utah State's defense can just play fundamentally sound, they can get some turnovers and play pretty well. And I think that with the offense as well, I think they can just make good choices. Kent Myers doesn't have to be the world beater that tries to um, fit in these balls, between two defenders and everything. But I guess Jake, finish with that thought is, that's kind of my opinion is Utah State can, if they play solid, they can beat the Cougs this year. So either
Yeah,
agree, disagree, or
no,
change my
I, I,
opinion.
I do agree with you guys. Utah State does have a conference championship to play for, and BYU, frankly, is not in their conference. There's definitely there are other goals for Utah State to accomplish, and they've already started on that road with that winning over San Jose State. The one thing I do think the BYU game, if they were to win it, could do for them is it would almost legitimize their standing in the state. I saw a stat the other day that the record between Utah State and BYU since 1975 is BYU 31 wins, Utah State 5 wins. It's quite the lopsided number there, but if you pick up the sixth win here, I think it could help legitimize Utah State in the eyes of recruits. I think some fans around the state that might be a little more impartial, and I think that it could help them in that regard. But like you guys are saying, this isn't Utah State's Super Bowl. I'm in a complete agreement there that this is not Utah State's Super Bowl, nor should it be, because Utah State's got a goal to win the Mountain West Conference, and that's a great goal to have. And like you said, the NFL, everybody wants to win the Super Bowl. You have these goals out there that you can't attain, but I do believe that a win over Utah State, it would help, legitimize Utah State in the eyes of fans. And I do think, yes, it would be a feather in the cap for those guys that feel like they were overlooked by BYU. Transfers like Dallin Levitt, Quinn Ficklin, Roman Andrus, they might have a little more of a chip on their shoulder, saying, "Yeah, this is what you missed out on BYU because we left and came to Utah State. They win that game, they can puff their chest out a little bit." But I'm in full agreement that it's not Utah State's Super Bowl, but I do feel like it can legitimize, in a way, their season to this point.
Yeah, absolutely, and I would definitely even go as far as a BYU loss to Utah State would be more of a quote Super Bowl unquote type of situation, because like you said, if Utah State beats BYU, then are they going to beat Boise State? Are they going to beat Mississippi State? Maybe or maybe not, but that's kind of a bad a bad spot to put your team in, or a bad situation to be in, where you're just kind of backpedaling and and kind of, you've taken a few punches, and if you want to look at it that way. So it definitely is gonna make some people worried if BYU loses to Utah State. So that's another kind of thing to look at. So, I mean, we're under 5 minutes. We're going to get cut off basically of this broadcast. We've got 45 minutes, and we're already at 40 minutes. So thanks for jumping on, Jake. We really appreciate it. We'll kind of finish up here real quick, but before I forget, definitely check out all the scout features. You can even go to the BYU board, check it out. If you're a premium subscriber, go to ustateaggies.com is the address for the Utah State site. We'll post this podcast. We'll post some previews and some features. Obviously, recruiting is always a big focus on the sites as well. High school sports is in full swing, and I know Jake follows and covers the high school sports as well. So definitely check them out. Check them out on Twitter. Check them out at the BYU site. As much as it pains me to say that, but really, all you guys basically have the premium board. So I mean, most of your stuff is premium. So
yeah, the reason behind the premium board is BYU requires that you can't have anonymous user names, so we have to have a premium board to protect people's identities. So normally, we'd be like everybody else and have a free board, but BYU to allow us to do what we have to do, we have to have that premium board. So my apologies on that.
No worries. I mean, definitely is worth signing up for, whether you're a BYU fan or Utah State fan. Definitely check it out. Sign up. There's always some specials going on. The price is probably going to go up in the near future. Just FYI, kind of some inside information for only podcast listeners. So definitely take advantage of that. Lock into the pricing, whether you want to pay monthly, every 6 months, or yearly. Lock into those prices now so they don't go up, and check out all the features there. Basically, any other thoughts, keys, Seth, that you have to for the Aggies to pull out a victory on Friday?
They got to win turnovers. Got to win the turnover margin, and they got to be able to run the ball.
Yeah. Is there any? I mean, are they kind of Jake? If you're still on, are there any big play guys on offense that you kind of expect? Maybe Trinman to come up with a big play, Bushman? Or...
Yeah, Trinman came close to breaking a kick return for a touchdown against Utah. Mitch Wishnowski, their stud punter, chased him down and got him by the shoelaces. So keep an eye on Trinman. Bo Tanner's got plenty of speed as well. Those are probably their two big game breakers if they can get them loose, but we'll see if they actually can do that.
Yeah, and it always, I think against Utah State, it all kind of comes down to getting a good matchup, and that I would include, Jalen Davis is probably not going to allow many big plays. Jamarcus Ingram, for a freshman, has not been allowing big plays, and Cameron Haney's starting to come through as well, although he's the third guy. If BYU can maybe get some matchups, but that's the thing is BYU's offense able and designed to get mismatches? It seems like they just line up and they run their play. It's almost bizarre to me.
Yeah, I honestly wish I had a better answer for you, but I'm kind of in the same boat with you that it seems like they just kind of run up, they get up to the line, they kind of just run it. Who knows? Maybe they adjusted during the bye week, but we'll find out on Friday. Yeah,
and that's the benefit of this spread offense. We've got a minute left, so we're just kind of packing in as much as we can, but that pro style offense is not really designed like the spread offense, where they're changing plays and they're kind of taking advantage of mismatches. They're looking at the defense. It seems like a lot of it's just calling a play and running the play, running a run or running a throw and hope it works. And that doesn't seem like a recipe for success, especially for a team like BYU. So it'll be interesting. Like you say, maybe they'll change a lot of things up on Friday, and so we'll all be watching. We'll all wait and see what what happens. But I think if Utah State comes out and plays well, they win the turnover battle, they get some big plays and play well, which I think there's a good chance they will. It should be good for Aggie fans. So thanks for listening, everybody. We will be back with you in the next couple weeks, and